All right. Before we get started, let me just clarify. It's not really an $80,000 track day. What I'm going to talk about is Spring Mountain. And despite its name, it is not a place where they produce fancy bottled water. It's actually a motorsports country club where membership starts at about $80,000 for the first year. After that, it's around $7,500 per year, which, I mean, if you do a lot of track days, really isn't that bad. And the initial membership fee can be resold, so it's not like you won't get $75,000 of that back later. Basically, it's the same business model as a golf country club, but instead of 18 holes, they have a racetrack, or 3 racetracks, but I'll get to that in a minute. So today, let's look at what makes the Motorsports Country Club experience different from a normal track day. And you can let me know in the comments if you think it's worth it. Oh, and please subscribe. It really helps the channel.
All right, so we're on day 1 of the Spring Mountain adventure and the road trip out to Las Vegas to check out the Spring Mountain racetrack. Just gonna go meet up with my buddy Steve right now, and we'll get on the road, and we're gonna take the route out through Yosemite to get there.
First, let's talk about your typical $400 or so track day. Probably a lot of you watching my channel are familiar with track days, but for those of you who aren't, they're non-competitive driving events that happen at a racetrack, and they're organized by a group who rents the track and then sells spots to car enthusiasts like me. Typically, you're driving your own car and other folks are driving on the track at the same time. Most organizers break the drivers up based on experience into groups like novice, intermediate, and advanced. The groups usually have about 20 to 30 cars in each, and you're out there on the track with other people, but you aren't racing, and that's a key point. If someone is faster, you let them by as safely as possible. Nobody wants to wreck their car at a track day. Some people do like to measure their lap times, but that's more as a gauge of what's working well and isn't, and just to kind of improve their own driving skills. The sessions are usually about 20 minutes long, and the groups rotate throughout the day, so typically you get about 1.5 to 2 hours of total driving time at a normal track day. And again, here in California, a track day will typically cost you about $400 to enter, obviously excluding fuel, tire and brake wear, or if anything happens like damaging your car. Track days are super fun, and I've been doing them now for over 20 years. And in a good year, I'm happy to get around 4 or 5 track days in, although I always wish I had time for more. So now that you know what a normal track day is like, let's talk about some of the biggest differences between that and the experience I had at Spring Mountain. I had the pleasure of going out there for a couple of days as an invited guest. First, it's not really a track day at all. For the most part, you just go when you want to go. Spring Mountain guarantees 16 member days a month, but they do use the various tracks, there's actually 3 of them that can be linked together, for other events. They rent them out to other track day clubs, and they have a Corvette driving school there. So as long as it's a member day, you can go out and drive. So 16 member days per month times 12 months, that's actually 192 track days per year available to you. And they're mostly Friday through Sunday, which is good for most people's schedules. An added bonus of being a member is that you get to drive for free at any other club's track days if they rented out the track. Also, there's no groups. There's no novice, intermediate, advanced. Well, that's kind of a lie. There are actually 2 groups. There's a race car group and a non-race car group, and they alternate every 30 minutes. But this is more for safety because the speed differences, and it's also just really hard to see tiny open wheel race cars like Radicals or other Formula type cars when you're in a normal road car. They're just so low, they don't even come up to the doors even in my Lotus. Another big difference, there are very few cars to share the track with. Remember how I said that at a normal track day, a group will typically have 20 to 30 cars in it? Well, when I was at Spring Mountain, the most cars on track at once was 5. And for many sessions, it was just my friend and I out there on the 2.5 mile track. It literally felt like it was our own private track just for us. And my friend, who's the member, also confirmed that 5 is the most number of cars he's ever seen. That's the busiest day he's ever been there. One of the biggest intangible things that I noticed, though, was the feeling of abundance. You feel like you have plenty of track time at your disposal. This created a much more relaxed atmosphere and really helped me improve my driving. Unlike a regular track day where you feel like the time on track is really scarce and you have to get every last minute on track, at Spring Mountain, if you were tired or you wanted to take a long lunch or go for a swim in the pool or take a nap between sessions, it really didn't feel like you were missing out. That brings me to another thing. With homes right at the track, there isn't any of this unload your tools and all the stuff out of your car and leave them in the paddock while you go out on track, like you would typically do at a normal track day. You suit up and you put your helmet on in your own garage or in your driveway, you go out on the track, and when your session's over, you return to your house with all the comforts of home. Food, your own bathroom, tools and supplies in your garage. It's really a nice luxury to have a house right at the track. I even hung out in the hot tub between sessions one of the days. Now, not everyone has a house there. There's about 70 lots, and I think about 20 houses have been built so far. But you can also rent just a garage at Spring Mountain and live somewhere nearby in Pahrump, or you could stay at the rental condos when you come to the track. Most of the houses are rarely occupied, but my friend did say that there were 2 or 3 where the owners live at the track full time. Living at the track, though, is definitely not for people who want peace and quiet. Most of the houses have backyards that literally border one of the 3 tracks, and the Corvette Racing School starts prepping and warming up their cars pretty early in the morning, but hey, at least you don't need to set an alarm clock. Another thing that I was surprised about was how nice everyone was, both the staff and the other members. The staff was incredibly helpful and even gave me a loaner suit, a loaner helmet, a loaner Hans device, and when I had a leaky valve stem on one of my tires, the shop replaced it for free in less than 10 minutes, and I didn't even have to miss any track time. The other members were also super friendly, encouraging, and they didn't have that track day bravado that sometimes you sense at regular track events. It was a really good vibe, just like people giving thumbs ups and waves as you drove past, even in the paddock. And here's a really small point, but they don't require you to have numbers on the side of your car. Also, many of the flagger stations are electronic, meaning if there's a yellow flag, it's shown on a screen. But to be honest, in the 2 days that I was there, not a single person went off track, and people were driving like pretty hard. So, what do you think? Is it worth the price difference? My math says that at $7,500 a year after the initial membership fee, you only really need to do 19 track days to break even. Well, one thing that I know is that I am super excited to go back.